Welcome back. We are continuing our journey through Python programming. Last video, we learned how to go download Python. And we're going to use basically the Python shell and the Python IDE that is provided by Python.org that folks who create Python. There are many other tools, very sophisticated tools that are available. So if you're going to continue to be an active programmer and write complex programs in this world, at the end of this chapter, we'll come back and give you some pointers as to what are some of the other tools you may want to explore things. So for now, we're going to stick with the standard stuff that comes from the python.org as a download. They are compatible with Mac, Windows, and Linux, and they are free to get. And if you're on a PC, for example, you simply go to your search bar. Mine does shows up because I was using it, but if you haven't done it, you just type IDLE and it pops up, Python 3.7 app. You click on it, the shell comes up, and then to the different windows. So let me drag it to this window so you can see it. And there it is. So now you're ready to roll. So what we're going to do in this session is we're going to focus on what are the variables and the operators. Variables are the way we remember the information. There are three types of information you can remember. It could be a number, integer number. It could be a float number, or it could be a string, like a sentence or a word or things like that. There are many other sub-variations of it, but those are the three fundamental variations you got to remember. Integer like 11, 12, float would be 12.5, 12.65, whatever. And then a string would be hello world or something similar to that. And then we're going to move over and talk about the operator. So now I have these three types of information. What are the things I can do to manipulate those things? Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. And then, so it's kind of the next thing we're going to do is there a way I could write all the things I want to do in one file and have Python run that file? That file is called a script. And we'll get to see how that is done, because it would be cumbersome every time you want to run your program. You have to actually type it. It's not a really workable scenario, but it's a good way for us to start learning. So let's bring this up. And what I'm going to do is, if there is enough room, I will make this a half screen, and hopefully you can see it well enough. And then I'm going to also do the other half screen for the textbook, just so we kind of see what are the material we are covering here. And we'll go through, and for every one of them, we'll try to do an example here, so you can kind of see how it gets affected. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with the variable naming. So if I'm going to use a variable, I have to name it. The variables must start the name. So variable is where you store whatever you need to store. So they must start with the letter or an underscore. I wouldn't recommend using underscore, because typically we want to do something that's human readable. So as a first character, usually should be something that is relevant to what you're working on. You can't start with the number. And you can't have space in your variable name. If you want to have space, let's say I want to say test, and I usually use a small letter because that makes it easier to type. So if you want to say test one, you can do that, or let's say we want to call it test variable. I can do that. Underscore is kind of a way we use. Underscore is the character above minus sign on your keyboard, and it's a good way to kind of make it readable. Your goal is your variables to be representative of whatever it is that you are trying to do. So this is a test variable, so I'm saying I'm using this for my testing. And I can have a number in here. So test variable 1, and I'm going to have a test variable 2, supposedly that's later on. Or so anyway, so that's that. So what can I do? So for example, let's begin a little intro. So we were talking about different kinds of variable. So the name could be as long. I think it can be all as much as, I'm not sure what the limit is. Probably 1024 characters, but hopefully you don't get your variables that big. So let's say my test variable integer, int for integer, and that will be like a 10. Okay. So now whenever I go and type in test underscore var underscore int, 10 will show up. Okay. Or I could do, and now you notice it's kind of nice to have short names because then you don't have to type as much. So you do a var, then you do, let's say we do a float, and the float would be something like 21.3434. Okay, and then now test underscore var underscore float. Oops, did I misspell it? Oh yeah, I did. I just put a dot instead of a. Oh, by the way, it's really nice. And as long as we have the error, might as well. The error is very nice and descriptive. It tells you where. We only have one line because we have a command line. If you have many lines, it would tell you which line. And it tells you, hey, you tried to print this test var. I'm not sure. Dot has a very, very special meaning in Python. Python is an object-oriented program. So a dot says you're invoking a operations on that object. But let's not. So it's a very special character. Anyway, so my variable really was underscore float, which I mistyped. That's all I did. So 21.3. So now we have two types. The last type is test, and I got tired. Well, let me be consistent. I'll use var, and I'm going to create something for the string just to see. String, I can either do it this way with double quotes. This is a string, and notice the colors kind of tell me what's happening as well. That I have a string. It's in kind of green. And notice for folks who have other language skills, remember, Python is cutting back on a lot of the symbols that are cryptic, like semicolon, curly bracket open, curly bracket close. It doesn't have any of that stuff. So if you know those stuff, forget about it. So here we go. And then now if I say test, hopefully I would type it correctly, variable underscore string, boom. This is a test, it prints it, and life is good. Okay. So I have three types of things. I can have these named the locations in memory where I can put things in there. This Python, I do not have, if you've done any other languages, some languages require you to tell the computer what your variable type is before you start. Python is implicit. When you make an assignment, depending on what you put in that name, it makes that name of that type, okay? And I can do fancy things such as I can add these things together, I can subtract. Okay, so let's go back here and kind of check it, okay? So if I come down here, we've kind of shown some of these stuff. Now I can do arithmetic operations on these things. I can add numbers together. I can subtract numbers from each other. I can do all of those things if I wanted to multiply numbers together, and the signs are plus, minus, star for multiplication, slash for division, star. This is a little bit different. Other languages use a hat for power, but in Python it uses star for a power. So a to the power of b. And then remainder is a remainder of a divided by b, whatever the remainder is put in here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So I think I don't know if we need to do any example, but let's do one just to have it. So for example, I could have a variable called result, and I can say, okay, my result is test underscore var underscore int, and if you remember, I put a 10 in there, divided by, let's say, by the way, I don't have to use a variable when I do the operations. I could just divide it by a number. So let's divide it by some number that gives me weird the answer. So 10 divided by 3 is going to give me a long, and it doesn't show me the result. So if I want to see what that value is, I got to say print. Print is called the built-in function. It's kind of a nice function. So you can say print A, and it just, oh. So why doesn't it like that? So it says print A. A is not defined. Oh, that's true. I have not defined A. That's basically it's telling me, the error message, the red stuff is telling me, hey, you never told me what was A. Why are you, how can I print it if you never told me what it was? I meant to say test underscore, oh, I meant to say result. That was what I, results. Because that's what I calculated up here. I meant to say that I was looking over here and I saw print A up here. So I just kind of copied it. Okay. Okay, 3.3333, and then it rounds it up at the end based on some algorithm. So that's pretty much it. So now you have, these are operators, you can add, multiply, divide, and all that. That's pretty obvious. You take a number, you can, oh, one thing that's kind of interesting about Python is that we only know that I can add numbers together or subtract numbers together, but Python is pretty cool because what I can do this. I can basically say, take, what was the string called? The string called was called test underscore var underscore string, right? Which was, if you remember, we defined that somewhere up here. Okay, this is a string, okay? So I can do this, and then I can go ahead and add to it, and I can add to it something like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And question, or whatever you want to put it, it's just a string, so it doesn't really matter. So what it's going to do, add for a string is not like add a number, two numbers together. What it does is what's called it concatenated. It basically takes the first string and attach it to the second string. Remember, the first string is, this is a string, then you should see a dash. What does this mean should be the next. So if I hit enter, oops. Okay, it doesn't like, well, I'm not doing, oh, sorry. We're not very good with repeating those names because it was the name of my variable. That's another thing. You got to be very careful what you name it. It is case sensitive. So if you have a capital letter, a small letter would be different. But my problem was I added ing at the end. It says, I don't know what that variable is. So I could do test underscore var underscore str. That's the name of the variable. That's what I got to do. And then I can say, what does this mean? And oh, by the way, I can use double or single quote. It doesn't really matter. But whatever you start, you got to finish with that same thing as well. So if I do that, see what happens. This is a string, so put them together. So the sum means there. Another interesting thing might be, I can do this. I can say multiply. So now the question is, what happens when I multiply a number with a string? What do you think is going to happen? So let's say I would say, oh, let me just put a string in here. Just then it was using single quote. The single quote, say happy. I'm going to put a dash. And I kind of slide. Well, I can just say happy, and you can see what happens. Let's capitalize it so you can see where happy starts and where happy ends. But you can do double quote, single quote. I'm just trying to go back and forth so you know both double quote and single quote can be used for a string. See what it did? It created 3 copies of it. So you can have 3 copies of it. And you can, I don't know, there's sometime it may be useful for you to do that. Okay. Let's see what else we want to talk about. So string arithmetic is something unique, maybe that we haven't seen. Now, the other order of operation. This, I think we talked about it last time, but I wanted to come back and really make sure that you know that when you're doing operations like exponent, it comes first, is the highest priority. Multiplication and division, they're equal, but they do it from left to right always, just like what you learned. And then addition and subtraction is lower than multiplication. So all the multiplication happens first, and then you do that. What does that mean? So this is a really good example. For example, 2 multiplied by 5 happens first because it's a higher value, higher priority, then the plus happens. If you want to force it, so the plus happens first, then you have to use parentheses. So that's how you force. Whatever is inside the parentheses happens first, what happens later. So let's go ahead and do this one real quick. This is, let's see how would we write it in Python. We would write it as 1 plus 3, and then we say power of 2, and then divide. And I don't have to worry about order of operations because the power, what's inside the parenthesis is going to happen first, the power is going to happen second, next the division is going to happen. If you're ever in doubt, feel free to use additional parentheses to make sure that what you think should happen happens, okay? And then that is the answer. Okay, 4 square is 16. 16 divided by 5 is 3.2. So those was the kind of the arithmetic operation. There are other kind of operations. So we've got arithmetic operation, and the next thing we want to spend a little bit of time on with kind of logical operations. Okay, the logical operation, the result is either true or false, right? So for example, when I say, if I come here, let me use A and B, much like we have here, so we don't get confused. So let's say A is 5, and oops, what happened? Oh, I had a space in there. Okay. So it says indentation is very important to Python, so be very careful how you use indentation, because it uses indentation to organize the code. So you can't start off line 1 unless you have a good reason why you're doing it. So I said A is equal to 5, now I'm okay. And then B is equal to 8. You can remember A is 5, B is 8. So if I say A equal to B, then value of B goes into A becomes 8. That's not what I want to do. I want to check to see if A is equal to B, and the result would be either true or false. That's why it's called a logical, because it's either 1 or 0, true being 1, false being 0. So it's basically the result is, so if A is equal to B, I get a true. If A is not equal to B, then I get a false. In this case, I should get a false, and there it is. Now the next one is I can do, is it not equal to B? Of course it's not equal to B, so I should get it true, and there it is. Now you can ask other question, is A less than B? And the answer is, oh yeah, A is 5, B is, yeah, should be true. There it is. Is A larger than B? And the answer is false. And then you can do less than or equal, larger than or equal, and all of that. These are very useful if you're trying to make a decision to do one thing or other based on the data you've got. Okay. So we are talking about numbers, but these also work on strings, but we'll come back and deal with that at a later date. So far, when I wanted to do something, for example, when I wanted to make an assignment to A and then an assignment to B, and then check to see if it's true or false, I had to individually typing. Now, if I want to do it again, I have to sit down and type all 3 of them over again. So most of the time, we're going to write a program and then we want to use it over and over again, or add to it, or all of those kinds of stuff. In order to do that, then what we'll use is what we'll do is we'll open this new file. You go to File, New File, and what it does, it pops up another window, kind of looks like this, and this becomes the program file. Now, one other thing I should show you is this thing. This thing is a comment, okay? It says this is a comment and computer will ignore. In other words, this is only for me and myself and anybody who wants to read the code. Then you can have as many lines as you want, second line of comment, okay? And that's all that's all it does. It's kind of, it allows you to annotate or comment on your code to make it easier for people to read and understand, especially if you're doing something that is out of ordinary, but typically is a good idea. Typically is a good idea at the top of your files to kind of describe what this file is for. This script, and they call it script. This script is used for exploring Python, basic variable operations. Okay. That's one. Okay, and then and then typically it's a good idea to say if you expect an input or you don't expect an input. In this one, we can say no input required. And then it's always a good idea to say when was the last update, just in case if somebody wants to know when this was done. So you say last update and put a date, whatever the date is that you updated it. Okay. And it's probably a good idea to say who was the programmer or author. Let's see, it's author name, whatever you want to put in there. And sometimes version numbers and put in there and all that kind of stuff. It's really up to you what you do. Now you can start your program. All those 4 lines will not be seen by a computer. Okay. So let's say I want to do something simple. Let's say so I'm going to create. Let's say I'm going to create a bunch of strings. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I'll create a string. I'm going to call the first one is. We'll call it a message. Or actually, let's do something a little less wordy. So we'll do text, and the text is going to be welcome to my first program in a script file. Okay, and just to make it that's fine. And then print text, and that's all. And that's all. Now you say scripts. All you do is save it in your favorite spot. So we'll just do save as. And then I have a little file I created for myself. I don't like to put it in here. I want to put it someplace I can remember where it is. So I'll put all my Python files in here. And I have a test one, and this one I'll call my first program. Oh, I better not make it long because I have to type it first. Okay, so it saved it. Now, if I go back and look, and see what it was saved as first.py. So all of your Python files, the script files you created, are gonna end with .py. That .py indicates this is a Python file that you have. If you want to run it, all you do is say run modules or F5, and it does it. Okay, so I look like I'm not doing very well. It says. Okay, I'm going to let you guys take a look at this. Take a minute, see if you see what the problem is. It's basically, let me see if I can show both things at the same time. Perfect. Let's see if I can format it. Okay, so let me just, instead of having to walk through each line to find out which is line 8, although it's not that difficult to do, I can say line 8, and this is line 8. And it's saying, basically, it's telling me that print is not understood. Print is not a defined function. And remember, we just briefly mentioned, and we'll get into this more detail later on, but notice the P of the print is capitalized. That is the problem. It says, I don't know what you're talking about. You'd only understand print the less smaller letter. And notice what happens when I made it. We made it a purple color. That means now Python knows that that's what you're doing. So this is kind of an important concept to have. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. And by the way, if you want to make your life easier, the F5, soft key 5, will get the run it, or you can go through the menu if you want. Okay, great. This time it ran, my program ran, and it basically did what I was asking it to do. Print, welcome to my first program in a script file, and it did that. Great. So let's see what we've done so far. What we've done so far is we learned the various operators, and I just realized that one other thing I wanted to talk about, and let's go ahead and bring it in here. There is another set of operators that I just kind of jumped over, and those are called these are the relational operators that I was talking about that gives you false and true, a logic value, false and true. There is another group called logical operands, which is and, or not, much like the logic gates we have. That's all they do. So they basically take it, they expect A to be true, B to be true, A to be. So these are called Boolean. They expect A to be Boolean, B to be Boolean. And then if it's both true, then it gives you a true for and both A or B are true, then you get a 1 for or, otherwise it's 0. And not, of course, inverts whatever you give it. So let's first do it in the command shell here, just to get a feel for it, and then we'll go mess with it over there. So I could say A is equal to true, and B equals to true. B is equal to A, and that's fine. Oh, by the way, I initially mentioned that there's int, string, and float. I want to go ahead and add Boolean to bool, B-O-O-L, Boolean to the list as well. These are Boolean. True and false are actually keywords in Python, and it remembers. So when you say B is equal to A, now took the true value and put it in A. That was just an assignment. It's nothing else. But what now I can do, so what I could do, I could go down here and basically say, okay, A and B, now and turn red, so that, or whatever color, that orange, which means I understand you're trying to give me a command. So A is true, B is true, so this should be true. Now let's go ahead and make B false. Oh, it doesn't understand false. That means what is wrong with it? It wants the F to be capitalized. Okay, so B equal to false. And there we go. And it turned color when you got it right. So that's something to pay attention. So it's very particular about whether you have capitalization, uppercase or lowercase. So pay special attention to that. Okay, so then what we're going to do, if I say A and B now, I should get a false because that's it. But if I say A or B, I should get a true because A is still true. And then A, or if I say not A, oops. Oh, okay. So no, this capitalization is going to kill me over time. Not A, and boom, you got it. Okay. So that was it. So we have, so I want to make sure, because I kind of did that after fact, we have arithmetic operation, plus, minus, all that. And then we have logical operator, and, or, not. And then we have relational operator, which is a comparison one. And we went through those as well. All right. So we talked about creating a file. We created the file. And then comments, we did talk about the comments, that is pound. And then, of course, print just prints whatever you give it to print. That's all it does. I think that's pretty much it as far as what I want to cover this far. I'll put one more in your back tool of tools if you maybe do a little bit more here, just to add a little more spice to the whole thing. There is another function which is available in Python. It's called input, and what it does, it allows you Oh, by the way, I think this is the first case we have this. Let me make my screen a little bit smaller and pull it up so you can see this. So when I say input, and it kind of gives me a guide as what should go into the parentheses. Okay, so it says reads a string from standard input. So when if I have this, whatever the user types, it comes back to me. So let me write this up. So except like here, we're going to say, please enter your name, colon space, so make it look kind of nice. And so what happens is that when this runs, it's going to prompt you, says, please enter your name, and I can say Izad. And boom, I get my Izad back. Now, that's kind of interesting, but what I want to do, let's put it in this program, okay? So instead of me saying, welcome to my first program, I may do something a little bit different, and we'll get to that in a minute. So instead of doing text here, I might do, let's say name, okay? So we're going to say name, and then we're going to say input, right? The command input, and then say, please enter your name. Okay, now whoever runs this program is going to get this prompt, which says, please enter your name. Okay. And so once you've entered your name, you say, okay, that is cool. Now say, okay, let's see what we can do with it. I can come here and create a string, which is going to be print. And then I'm going to say, welcome to welcome to my first program. Okay. And then I can say, put in the name. And that's a bad habit. I think as a programmer, I don't know why I capitalize. I think it's because when you write letters in regular English, you have to capitalize the first thing. In programming, that's just another extra keystroke people have to do, press the shift and put that in there. Typically, I don't like to put it in there, but been out of practice a little bit. Like name input is please enter your name. Welcome to my first program. And name. So what it's going to do is when it runs, it asks for your name, unless I made some mistakes, we'll find out. Asks for your name, puts it in the name, and that string will be displayed right next to this. So let's see what happens. Let's save it. And remember, to run it, I can either do F5 or go over here. So I'll run it. So here we are, it's running, and it says, please enter your name. I say Izad. And it says, welcome to my first program, Izad. So this is a kind of a nice way to get a string from the user, and it kind of makes it a little more interesting. It's not part yet. We're going to cover that cover all the not all, but quite a few of the most commonly used functions that are available in Python and later on in the next couple of videos. But for now, I thought it makes you have a little more things to use to write programs. That brings us to the end of this section, which, if you recall, was covering variables, operators, script files, and comments. Okay, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.